So the sorceress we can kind of see as this archetype of liminality. She moves between the seen and the unseen worlds, or she mediates this threshold between consciousness and unconscious. If we think about her as almost a psychopomp of an inner figure, she moves through darkness with a kind of sight that we don't naturally have ourselves. So it's like this illuminated sight or illuminated eyes that she has in the darkness to see what we cannot see. And that reveals wisdom, it reveals power, it reveals skills that are contained within the shadow itself. She channels using symbols, visions, insights, and many other ways through ritual, through divination, through spell work, through dream, through magic, through herbalism, all of these kinds of what we might call the intuitive arts or the divinatory arts that we might say are the language of the unconscious or the way to commune with these deeper energies and the rhythms of nature. She has this open access to the unconscious where shadow material and intuitive knowing converge. So she really stands, I think, at the center of being both a figure who can move into shadow and not fear it, and at the same time can speak the language of the unconscious via intuition. As an inner figure, then she really helps us with descent into shadow. She can help us cultivate our intuitive communications or our intuitive capacities, our divinatory skills, our awareness of symbols and dreams. And she shows that engaging the shadow is this an act of like an intuitive art, really. It's this dialogue between ego and the unconscious. So, sorceress and shadow, how do these two meet? As this figure of darkness, or the figure who lives in the forest, or the figure who's willing to go where others do not, she does not fear or reject darkness. She sees it as integral to her way of being. And if it's the type of sorceress that is rooted in the underworld or is on the darker side, she has an even deeper, more complex relationship with shadow. She teaches us the value of ritual and containment when descending into the unconscious. So we can think of a lot of the typical ways that the sorceress works. She's creating spells and potions. She's doing rituals. She's burning incense. She's collecting herbs. She's, praying or meditating. She's working with other deities. She's doing divinatory acts. These are all ways to create structure and containment or means of accessing the unconscious that hold us in a container. And I think this is really important, something we don't always consider, because if we try to just access the unconscious or the shadow on its own, it can feel really overwhelming. So she gives us ritual, which is really the embodiment of the mythic unconscious art, and that can help facilitate the experience so it's not so overwhelming. She helps us consider and explore and own our darker, shadowy, or rejected qualities. And that can be anything from really typically negative traits like aggression or violence, because we have these sorceress figures like the Baba Yaga, right? She offers boons and presents and gifts to the heroine, but she also threatens to kill her, or eat her. And it's like so that she contains those complexities and helps us meet our own internal aspects of aggression or violence. She also helps us meet the mysterious elements within, like our magical inclinations, our desire for ritual, our desire for spell work, our desire for divination. She says that that's valuable and should be explored and owned. So she really takes us as a guide, as a psychic guide, an internal guide into all of these different realms of shadow. Sorceress and intuition. How do these two meet? The sorceress is a channel of the unseen or of the shadow, or she is the channel by which we access the unconscious. And that connects us to this language of unconscious expression, symbol, image, energy, insight. The list goes on. She teaches us how to attune to unconscious expressions such as dreams, divinatory practices, synchronicities, energetic shifts, patterns of nature, ritual, all of these things. The more that we practice that, the more that we'll develop our intuitive sense, and the more we'll be able to fluidly tap into and speak to the unconscious because we learn how it expresses itself. We learn its language. We learn to speak language of the unconscious rather than forcing the unconscious to speak what we might say is like the language of the ego, which is give me clarity, give me clear words, give me an insight that's not mysterious at all. Very rarely is the unconscious going to provide that kind of insight. It's shrouded in mystery, it's full of image and symbol, it's coming up in patterns, but we can learn to discern them. The sorcerers encourage us to trust in this non rational knowing and the rhythm of inner guidance. And I think that's really beneficial, especially if you are a typical thinking type or a feeling type or even a sensation type, or intuition just exists a little bit lower in your personality naturally. Oftentimes, intuition is just something you don't trust. Especially if it's in the inferior, it's the most unconscious position. It's really, really difficult to access, or it's you judge it as not based in reality, not logical, not connected to your values enough. But if we turn towards the sorceress and her practices, perhaps we can bypass that idea that we have about intuition or non-rational knowing and just practice it for the sake of practicing it and see how it strengthens our capacity to communicate to the unconscious, to have really deep intuition. And what that does then is it refines discernment between what is projection and what is not, what is fantasy and what is not, what's true intuitive perception.